What is happening, everybody? Welcome back to the show. This is Trivia Rogues Podcast. Billy, Don, Jeff, and Rachel back at it once again, per the usual. What is happening, everybody?
Not much. What's happening with you?
It's kind of good to be back.
Yeah, I'm about to say, you've been gone for a few episodes.
Yeah, I was there remotely, sort of, last time.
That's right.
I wish I hadn't been.
We're lucky Don's here. Actually, we should be thanking, who's that guy that fought last night?
Conor McGregor.
Because I figured it's important for trivia because UFC is kind of a big thing nowadays. So I decided to look up, I know from all the commercials there was a big fight last night, so I wonder who won. Mm-hmm. And from what I understand, McGregor made short work of this guy.
Yeah, it was decisive. Yeah.
So for anyone who's out there who doesn't care about the sports and just wants the information,
Jeff raised his hand.
Yeah, I don't care about UFC either myself. It's not my jam, but Conor McGregor won this one in the first round, pretty quick.
Yeah, in 40 seconds.
That's real quick.
He came out. I didn't even see the first hit. It was immediate. I think the UFC was still like switching camera views when he hit him the first time.
Was it a pay-per-view event?
Yeah,
you gotta love having plunked down a bunch of money for
right.
that.
Well, but at the same time though,
there's
wonder,
so many.
I'm curious if you're like a diehard UFC fan. What is it that you want to see? Do you want to see someone just get knocked out, like historically awesome knockout in the first round?
I used to watch the heavyweights fight, and I wanted a long.
Right.
I wanted an epic.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of bleeding.
You know, when Tyson came out and knocked some guy out in 20 seconds, it's like,
yeah.
I wouldn't
right.
be bothered to pay to go see something like that.
Yeah, I can understand that. But it's like I also can kind of see why people would be like, oh well, I kind of like it when someone just gets handed in the first round.
I think it's awesome if I didn't pay for it.
It was exciting.
Yeah. There you go. That's exactly right.
It was exciting, and he did some new stuff, kind of.
He didn't have much time for that.
Yeah.
He hit him one time.
He walked in with a different kind of swag.
Yeah, no.
I love his swag.
His swag.
I enjoy him so much.
They started grappling standing, and he did this thing where I really haven't seen anyone do, where he used his legs and he just kept throwing his shoulder into the guy's face while they're trying to grapple.
Okay.
So he hit him real hard with that, and it was just different. It was very different. It was interesting.
Yeah, so there is that. So if you don't care, McGregor won handily. And so
McGregor.
Before we
were drinking his whiskey while we were watching it.
Oh, well, isn't that appropriate? So before we get into the main topics, we have one other bit of very relevant stuff for trivia or people who just want to know the happenings of the world. Jeff, something going on in the baseball world.
Well, there's been a lot of cheating exposed.
Yeah.
Let's hear about it. People are going to want to know about it.
I don't have a ton of details. I know the fallout on it. Apparently, the Houston Astros in 2017 were suspected of sign stealing, and as it turns out,
sign stealing. So for the non-sports fans, so in baseball, they have a lot of hand movements.
No. That's when you go to the person's yard and you steal signs out of it.
That's right, like the vote for whoever sign.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, and you swap it out with a for sale sign.
Yeah.
Nailed it. That's a good one. So in baseball, they hand signal each other all the time.
Well, there was a lot of this was more the catcher giving his signals, and they were electronically looking in and then transmitting to the batter what was coming.
Right.
And supposedly this was all orchestrated by their, I think it was a bench coach by the name of Cora.
Last name Cora.
Yeah. Who then became the manager last year of the Boston Red Sox, who also won. And
so both these teams won the World Series?
Yeah, and interestingly enough, Boston is being investigated now. So in the Houston Astros, the manager and the GM both were fired. The Major League Baseball handed down suspension saying that they weren't a part of it, but they knew about it and basically kept to themselves. So they gave him a year suspension, and the Houston Astros said, well, as long as you're going to be gone for a year, just go ahead and make it longer.
Well, didn't a player become a manager that was involved and he got fired too already?
That was Cora, but he was the one that supposedly...
Oh, that was Cora.
So he went to Boston, and they're investigating Boston, and the writing's on the wall that he happened to be in... He was the one that got this thing going in Houston. Now he's over in Boston. So, yeah, Boston and him have also parted ways.
And it even went as far as, they actually had a guy wearing, an electronic thing where, they could click it, and he would feel the number of pulses.
Wow.
On his arm.
That's wild.
They didn't want him to take his jersey off after he won the won one of the games in the playoffs, and everyone thought it was weird. Everyone was like, "Why were you holding your shirt down?"
Yeah.
Well, he was probably wired up, and he didn't want anybody to see the
It's like,
thing
I'm
on his
just
arm.
self-conscious, okay?
And there's a lot of stuff about it that I find a joke. One, Houston Astros got a $5 million fine, which sounds like a lot of money, but the value of their franchise went up about $400 million.
baseballs.
Right,
So it was a joke.
drop
Plus,
in the pan.
there has been an unwritten cheating code forever. Spitballs, stuff like that, they're not allowed. But if you get away with it, there's some guys that are legendary for having got away with it, and there's just a.
This is pretty blatant, though.
Yeah, well, it is. But
I think this is worse than steroids.
Well,
the steroid
this
epidemic.
is-
I don't know. How about
from-
deflated footballs?
Well, sure, but
This
as-
is more. This makes more of an impact, though. Like that's worse than that.
Yeah, and from
I
what
don't
I
know.
can tell, just on headlines and stuff, people are talking about this being one of the biggest scandals in baseball of all time. So
I
I
still
think so.
remember
I
when
don't
Sammy
like it.
Sosa.
No,
his,
The biggest
his
part of the
bat
game
had all
is
the corks
you
in it.
don't know what's coming. If you know what's coming,
But yet each team has got somebody dedicated on their bench to watching the third base coach and trying to steal their signs.
if you can
Yeah.
figure it out, that's
It's okay.
gamesmanship.
see, that's
This
the thing.
is
It's
this
like,
is just blatant. Like you're actually using technology
Yeah,
to spy.
above and beyond.
Like that. If you can figure out within the rules of the game and you can just figure it out on your own.
right,
Okay,
but the thing is, in a
so if
normal
you're a
game,
runner
you should
on
be able-
second base looking in and you can see what sign is coming, you can figure it out. Is that okay to transmit that?
Yeah.
See, there's a lot of gray area, how far you
Because-
can go and how far you can't go. And,
Right.
And again, obviously this has gotten a bit sophisticated, but
Right.
had they kept it a little less sophisticated, they could have said, yeah, the guy was stealing the signs when he was on base.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows?
yeah.
But how would he have transmitted that though?
Well, there's a lot of ways. If you're a base runner,
They have
especially on
signs
second,
like they
especially
tap
on
their
second base,
leg or
and you're the batter, you're
Oh,
looking at
sure.
me.
You
And
can-
if I
you
hold
can-
my left hand out, okay, that's a fastball.
That's
coming.
fair.
I hold
That's
my right.
fair.
There's ways that they could transmit.
I hadn't thought about like nonverbal like.
And there's a
signs.
lot of that does go on.
They could
Because
do-
one thing you'll see whenever somebody gets on second base, the catcher immediately comes out, they talk, and there's changing signs because if they're not worried about that guy who can look in on it, they're giving one set of signs.
You need to have some good vision for that.
Well, these guys that are hitting baseballs that are being thrown 100 miles an hour have pretty decent vision.
Yeah.
They have better eyesight than I do.
Yeah, that's
Oh yeah.
something that
It's
they're
funny because I
phenomenal
sit
about.
here and think, man, why do these people always got to cheat all the time? And I think, oh, when I play The Sims, I never play fair. I always cheat in The Sims. I'm like, well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's people want to win. That's
Human nature.
human
Trying to
nature.
get an
I was gonna say
edge.
the exact same thing.
Especially when there's a
Nature.
lot of money involved.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true.
trying to better yourself, So, all right. So either way, those are two very important things. One, obviously, the baseball thing much more relevant than the McGregor thing because it's just one fighter. But yeah, both those things could be coming up, especially coming up here. If you have a trivia night, they might touch on that kind of stuff. So make sure you remember that. All right, so let's go and jump into the main topics for today. I will be starting things off, and we're going to talk about the Colosseum
Ooh.
in Rome.
Oh, not the LA one?
That's correct. Not the Colosseum. Or I think wasn't the Titans stadium called the Colosseum too? Or is it still called the Colosseum? I'm
Don't
not sure.
think so.
I thought it was. Maybe I'm wrong. All right. So we're going to start off with the reign of Emperor Nero. And his reign was from 54 to 68 Common Era. So Emperor Nero, I'm not sure if anyone knows much about him. But
He fiddled
was,
while Rome burned.
Is that a thing?
You ever heard that?
No.
Yeah, read that. Look that up sometime.
All right. So Emperor,
makes sense.
Emperor Nero was well known to be kind of a dick. He was cruel, he was unjust, he was just a complete asshat. And
Asshats.
in 64, it's so weird because when I was doing this topic, I'm writing out in 64 because you think of a year like 1064 or 1264. It's hard just to write in 64.
Yeah.
But-
like 1964.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like no, it's just in 64.
You just start putting in.
Nero fiddled while Rome burned and Oh, that's the search. Okay, so yeah,
Yeah, it pops right up.
yeah, it does. Was that a poem or something?
I don't think so. I think that was just sort of.
A saying.
Yeah, because he was pretty
It's like
well
maybe-
into himself.
Yeah,
Like
you can
his-
say that. You can say that. We're gonna find out,
Really?
sir. How into himself he was. So in 64, a huge fire razed a huge area in Rome's center. And Nero, in a selfish move, then decides to take this land as his own Because now, granted, I mean, this I'm not sure. I didn't look exactly what it was, but I'm sure it was in this large of an area. There was homes, places of business of some sort, some kind of markets, whatever. But there was a lot of land. And he says, no, this is mine now. And he decides to have a massive, and then we'll put a quotes, pleasure palace. And before, like, I was telling my wife this, she thought that meant some kind of, like, harem or something like that. Nothing like that. It was just a place of luxury for him.
Right.
So a luxury palace, let's just say. He had that built on the space that was burned. And not just the space that was burned. He also said, you know what, this isn't big enough. So I'm also going to just seize some of the houses and properties around it. So it would make even more room for me.
Early eminent domain.
That makes sense.
What the government wants, the government gets.
This would be called Nero's Golden House, or when it was made, the Domus Aurea.
Or the Pleasure Palace.
Or the Pleasure Palace.
Wasn't a vomitorium, was it? No.
No. Something. I don't know.
It's a passage situated below or beneath a tier of seats in an amphitheater or a stadium.
Oh, so it's a stadium.
No, it's an entryway into a stadium.
Yeah, so you
Right.
you have the rows of seats and it kind of cuts a little tunnel through.
I'm going to use that next time we go to a football game.
Vomitory.
Meet me in the vomitorium. Meet me in the vomitorium, sir.
Nobody
I
will meet
spilled
you.
my popcorn in the vomitorium.
It says people also ask, did the Romans throw up after eating?
Hey,
That's right underneath it.
That's relevant, I guess. All right, so anyway, so Nero, the land that Nero took as his own spanned 125 acres, and for people who want a better generality of that, it's approximately 95 football fields worth of land just for his own luxury palace.
That's nuts.
So this palace, and by the way, I should say, it's not like the actual palace itself isn't 125 acres. He had a palace built and then other amenities around the area.
His moat.
So So anyway, his palace had a minimum of 140 rooms with ceilings that reached up to like 36 feet high. And that's 11 meters. Vast gardens, lakes, a 100-foot statue of himself as a sun god.
That's what's up.
100-foot statue of himself.
I need to get me one of those.
You want a statue of Nero?
No, of myself.
Oh.
As a sun god.
Put it on my property.
What a great way to feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
He had water-powered revolving banquet halls.
Huh.
Yeah. And also many guest homes just scattered throughout his land. Just because. Why not?
He liked to entertain.
I guess so.
Well, yeah, I'm talking about the guest houses he likes to entertain. Everything else is just like, why, dude? Anyway,
Why
but
not?
I thought like, it's a lot of banquet
Why
halls, too.
not?
It wasn't just a couple banquet halls. It was a lot of banquet halls. So, who knows?
Maybe
man?
he was hosting weddings.
Getting that quiche.
Getting the quiche.
In 68, Nero commits suicide. And, by the way, this is 4 years after the fire. So I'm sure it took a long time to build it.
Right.
So you didn't
Like it
enjoy
was
it
just
for very
built,
long.
yeah.
So he commits suicide and has no heir to take over, leaving Vespasian, Emperor Vespasian, the opportunity to become Rome's next emperor, starting the Flavian era. So I guess the Julius era was the last emperor of the Julius era was Nero, and then Vespasian comes in and becomes the first of the Flavian era of emperors.
I don't know what you just said.
Okay, Don, that's fine. So among his first orders was to scrap and demolish Nero's golden house and give the land back to the people.
What?
Yeah.
It's already built. Just take it, man. Like, you're not even the bad guy. Look, I guess I'll move into this dope house. Because, it's the thing now.
Well, the
It's
whole
not my fault.
you have to understand, too, is that Vespasian knew about Nero.
Yeah.
And everyone hated Nero.
Well, good.
What do you mean good?
Take his statue down, put a statue of yourself up there.
Yeah, but people hated Nero. He didn't want to be like Nero.
He doesn't have to be like Nero. He just...
If he lives in his house and he's like Nero.
So I'm like... So anyone that buys a house, you're like whoever owned the house before.
Okay,